Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
Sustain that industry. So if government does not have much money, they should find an enabling environment.
Now, what are these issues? The petrol is still imported because local refineries are not working.
Does it stop at giving a directive? What should be done to ensure that this is done?
One of the factors being identified by our key persons is the issue of transportation. For you to have a sustainable city, you must have a deliberate attempt to have a master plan.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange, where we talk about everything that has to do with business, finance, the economy, and everything that has to do with national issues. Our responsibility on this program is to shape policy and advance development through our conversation. I am Femi Ayodele. Today, Friday, October the 13th is dedicated for risk management. Today is International Day for Risk Reduction across the whole world. We'll be looking at these and some other issues that has to do with sports in Nigeria, because today is Friday and we're going to make it more entertaining and more educating for you. We hope that as you spend the next 3 hours with us on Early Exchange, you get the best of programming. We're going to inform you and educate you. All right, let's go on a short break now. Where we'll return, the news will kick off with Blessing. Stay with us.
Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade, and later, under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Markets, Souk Enlightenment.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the morning news updates on SIC News. I am Blessing AG. We begin to the stories from Nigeria, where we're reaching you live. President Bola Tinubu has appointed Mr. Ola Olukoyede as the new chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, exercising powers granted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Establishment Act 2004. Olukoyede, a seasoned lawyer with over 22 years of experience in regulatory compliance consulting, fraud management and corporate intelligence, has a deep familiarity with the EFCC's operations, having previously served as Chief of Staff to the Executive Chairman and Secretary to the Commission. This appointment follows the resignation of the suspended Executive Chairman, Mr. Abdulrashid Bawa. Also, President Tinubu has given his approval for Muhammad Hassan Hamadu Judah to assume the role of Secretary of the Anti-Graft Commission with a renewable term of 5 years. Turning now to matters concerning education. In a bid to improve access to quality education and address the shortage of university admissions in Nigeria, the National University Commission, NUC, has granted permission for the London Academy of Business School in collaboration with the University of Sunderland in the United Kingdom to operate in Nigeria. The partnership will launch its first academic session in January 2024 at the Public Service Institute of Nigeria in Abuja. During a meeting with NUC, Dr. Derek Watson, an associate professor from the University of Sunderland, assured that students in Nigeria would receive the same academic standards as their counterparts in the UK, emphasizing compliance with NUC guidelines. The President, Director of Studies for the London Academy of Business School, Dr. Larry Jones Esson, expressed the importance of obtaining NUC recognition to establish the partnership's educational programs in Nigeria, and adding that NUC's recognition was essential for the value of the degrees offered and for students eligibility for the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC. The House of Representatives has conducted and confirmed the presidential appointees to the board and management of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. These designates were presented before the House ad hoc committee, which had been mandated to oversee the screening process. The screening is in compliance with Section 2, Subsection 2 of the Niger Delta Development Commission Establishment, etc. Act, as outlined in a letter from President Bola Tinubu. The House endorsed Mr. Chiedu Ibe for the position of NDDC board chairman, along with 16 other individuals for various roles within the commission. Chairman of the House Committee on NDDC, Eriatake Ibori Swenu, charged the designates with the responsibility to be visionary leaders with integrity, tasked with fulfilling the Commission's mandate and making a tangible impact on the lives of people in the Niger Delta. The federal government of Nigeria is set to embark on a comprehensive rebranding of the Federal Fire Service in the coming months. This transformation will not only involve a change in the name, but also broaden the service's functions. The announcement was made during the inauguration of 15 firefighting trucks and rapid response vehicles in Abuja. The Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, explained that the rebranded entity, to be known as the Federal Fire and Rescue Service, will take on additional roles, including risk assessment, information collection, and protecting the health and safety of workers. This strategic change is expected to lead to job creation and play a vital role in addressing fire and rescue needs in Nigeria. The Controller General of the Federal Fire Service, Jaji Abdulganiyu, noted that in the first and second quarters of the year, they responded to 1,096 distress calls, saved 111 lives, and protected properties valued at over 300 billion naira. In another development, the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alaki, says no Nigerian state government possesses the constitutional authority to ban mining activities. Speaking during the second pre-press briefing for the 8th annual Nigeria Mining Week in Abuja, the minister addressed the issue of some states signing executive orders to prohibit mining. He clarified that mining operations are constitutionally under the exclusive legislative list of the federal government, and therefore state interference is not permissible, adding that while states can engage in mining by following due processes and obtaining licenses, they cannot regulate or ban mining independently. He also affirmed that the federal government is responsible for mining operations, and any state wishing to engage in mining should do so by forming a special purpose vehicle SPV, applying for a mining license through the Ministry of Solid Minerals, and adhering to the necessary criteria. Let's turn now to the parts of Africa where Zimbabwe's government has taken measures to combat a surge in cholera cases by banning large gatherings in certain areas and increasing surveillance at entry points to the country. With nearly 5,000 possible cases and 100 suspected deaths, authorities are concerned about a repeat of the 2008 cholera epidemic, which claimed 4,000 lives. Specific regions, including Manicaland, have been hit hardest, leading to large gatherings being prohibited, funerals limited to 50 attendees with no food service, and people advised against open markets, social gatherings, and outdoor church camps. The country's ongoing water shortages and sanitation issues have contributed to repeated cholera outbreaks, as many rely on unsafe water sources due to damaged sewer systems. Now let's take a break before bringing you stories from the rest part of the globe. Stay tuned. Glad to know you're still with us. The head of South Africa's central bank, Laseta Gayango has stressed the importance of rebuilding fiscal buffers to combat inflation and anticipate a prolonged period of higher domestic interest rates. Speaking at the IMF and World Bank annual meetings in Marrakesh, Gayango stressed the need for governments worldwide to unwind the stimulus measures implemented during the COVID pandemic years, as failure to do so would result in increased financing costs. South Africa's Reserve Bank had maintained its main interest rate, and a sustainable fiscal trajectory would become clearer following a budget statement in November. Meanwhile, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa is ready to assist in mediating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, leveraging the nation's expertise in conflict resolution. Ramaphosa also advocated for the immediate establishment of humanitarian corridors in the Middle East, ensuring the unhindered flow of aid to those urgently in need. This call for humanitarian access follows days of Israeli airstrikes targeting Gaza in response to a Hamas attack over the weekend. Ramaphosa expressed grave concern over the escalating violence and atrocities against civilian populations, emphasizing the imperatives for a cessation of hostilities and the exercise of restraint. Now let's take a turn to the Middle East, where His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and U.S. President Joe Biden has engaged in a discussion on regional developments, particularly concerning the escalating violence that poses a significant threat to regional security and stability. Their conversation underlined the necessity of safeguarding civilians and creating safe channels for humanitarian and distribution. The leaders stressed the importance of collaboration among regional and international stakeholders to advocate for restraint and immediate de-escalation, with a shared goal of broadening political avenues to promote peace and stability in the Middle East. Furthermore, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed and President Biden took the opportunity to revisit the strong strategic partnership and friendship between the UAE and the U.S., exploring potential avenues for further enhancing their ties across various domains. Still in the UAE, the Ministry of Health and Prevention has introduced the herpes zoster vaccine aimed at preventing shingles to health facilities catering to individuals aged 50 and above. Administered in 2 doses separated by 6 months, this vaccine aligns with preventive healthcare strategies to mitigate the risk of shingles infection among adults while reducing related complications. The Assistant Undersecretary for the Public Health Sector, Dr. Hussein Abdurrahman Al-Rand, noted the integration of the herpes zoster vaccine into the National Adult Vaccination Program with the goal of expanding vaccine coverage and curbing the spread of this infectious disease. The launch of Dubai AI, a generative AI-powered digital city concierge, is set to have a significant impact on residents and visitors by offering services across various domains, including health, entertainment, business, and education. This innovative city-wide platform will enhance accessibility and convenience and will redefine the way people interact with digital services in Dubai. As AI continues to shape the landscape of government services, concerns regarding privacy and security have emerged. Collaborative efforts by technology producers, government, and consumers are required to ensure AI's responsible and secure integration into daily life. Moreover, the advocacy for synthetic data as a privacy solution for AI applications reflects the growing need to balance data quality and individual privacy in a digitally transformed world. Also, the Dubai International Financial Center DIFC Court have signed an agreement with Dubai Chambers to enhance collaboration in support of the UAE's economic goals. This partnership will focus on digital economy and mediation services, as well as synchronized international activities. The DIFC courts are aligning their strategic work plan for 2022-2024 with the D33 economic agenda and Dubai digital strategy to bolster UAE's economic vision. Now, according to the director of DIFC Court, Justice Omar Al-Meri, the importance of this partnership in realizing the UAE's 2031 vision and promoting Dubai as a strategic advantage for international investors is key. In another story, the International Energy Agency IEA says while the risk of oil supply disruptions due to the conflict between Israel and Hamas is limited, it is prepared to intervene in the markets if necessary. The conflict has raised concerns in oil markets as the Middle East region accounts for over 1/3 of the world's seaborne oil shipments. Meanwhile, IEA has warned of signs of demand destruction due to high energy prices and interest rate hikes, particularly in lower-income countries. But global oil demand is still expected to grow by 2.3 million barrels per day this year. Oil prices initially surged with the conflict, but have since stabilized as supply flows remained uninterrupted, while prices remain high due to supply cuts by Saudi Arabia and Russia. That's our package this morning. Thank you for watching. I am Blessing AHA. Please stay for the rest part of Early Exchange.
Does it stop at giving a directive? What should be done to ensure that this is done?
One of the factors being identified by our key persons is the issue of transportation. For you to have a sustainable city, you must have a deliberate attempt to have a master plan.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's the Early Exchange, and it's time for news analysis now, where we'll dwell more on the major headlines trending today. And I'm being joined by in-house analyst Sam Huruwije is here with us this morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Femi. My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning,
Blessing.
sir.
Yeah, Blessing. Today is Friday.
Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. There's always this excitement that comes with Friday. I don't know why.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
That only some persons understand.
And Sam, too, has set the pace for the Owambe in the weekend with your outfit. That's great.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Now, today is International Day for disaster risk reduction. Let's start with that. This was created in 1989 by United Nations as a way to draw public awareness to the need to reduce risk, and also address the issue of inequality. Talk to us about the importance of having a day like this.
Okay, simply put, DRR highlights the impact of disaster on humanity. Over the years, the United Nations, in line with the University of London, Department of Humanitarian Future, have found a way to play various scenarios that deals with disaster risk across the world. So they do what they call scenario planning to anticipate possible areas of natural disaster and their impact. So they talk about cyclone, hurricane, and all that. They're able to map out strategies in a way to reduce disaster risk on humanity. So therefore, the UN, over the years, try to highlight the importance of how societies can anticipate possible risk that occur from natural disaster, and are able to put mitigation policies in place to reduce disaster risk across the world.
What do you expect from agencies, NGOs, from the federal government to improve the level of public awareness? Because it's also important for the people to be aware of a day like this, and then they need to also understand the significance of a day like this. What do you think can be done to improve the level of public awareness?
All right. NEMA has the core responsibility in terms of educating people in terms of disaster risk reduction. But what is key, in my view, I know that it may have a small center within NEMA, but in other places like the UK, in India, they have disaster risk reduction management center that are charged with the responsibility of anticipating various disasters, and key mitigants are put in place to address those issues. But I know today NGO working within the space of humanitarian emergencies and disasters, educating people all over the world to see how we can reduce risk that come particularly from natural disaster.
All right, let's go to the major story for today. We'll look at the new appointments. Like we said, we're going to start with our president. It's a season for appointments, and the president has appointed, or has nominated, Olaolu Koyede as the new EFCC chairman, exercising his powers granted by the EFCC Act. The president yesterday nominated Olaolu Koyede as the new EFCC chairman. His name has been sent to the National Assembly for confirmation. You understand that the former chairman, had to resign under a controversial manner, and it's almost becoming a practice whereby the EFCC chairman, they live under a very controversial circumstance, uncelebrated, and it has always been, it's looking like a practice. And that of Bauer too happens same way. But there's a need to elect a new person, and the president has sent the name of this young man to the National Assembly. But this also brought up some issues. Olukoyede is a seasoned lawyer for 22 years now. He has been practicing as a lawyer, but there's this argument that his appointment contravenes the provision of the EFCC Act, which states that any person who must serve as the chairman of that commission must be a serving or a retired member of any law enforcement agency, and must not be below the rank of assistant commissioner of police. But here you have a man who hasn't fulfilled this, and then some are arguing that there's a need for these to be considered before choosing, an EFCC chairman. But the president is looking at the experience this man is going to bring on board as a lawyer, although he has been in that commission, as a secretary to the former chairman. But Sam, which one is more important, qualification or the justification for having this kind of an experienced lawyer to head this kind of agency or commission?
First, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not too familiar with the exact law in terms of whether the minimum requirement for the appointing officer must be within the domain of the police or other security service. But what I do know is a constitutional provision by the president to appoint those issues to work with. So within that framework of a constitutional provision generally, I think what the president has done is in order. What is key for those who appoint people, people that can deliver value for you, are the people that you can appoint to office, even though they are constitutional provisions. And I said I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the exact law, but I'm sure the president has the Attorney General who will have advised if there are any infraction into the constitutional provision. But therefore, his appointment is welcoming based on his legal background. And let's hope that his work will not end the way every other person apart from Nur Rubadu has ended in that commission. So we wish him well, and we think that the governance structure, in my view, is more important in terms of how you can reduce corruption rather than fighting corruption. Personally, I believe that you need to put a framework that serves as disincentive to people rather than fighting corruption.
All right, I think the issue of who should head the EFCC, well, you mentioned the provisions of the EFCC or guidelines.
The EFCC Act.
Yes, the EFCC Act regarding who should head the EFCC. I don't think that the president is unaware of the act. So if he chooses someone who by that act is seen as not qualified to have that position, there are reasons for it. And I think somehow it is done in a way that it balances up. Now, this person has also been in the EFCC, has deep familiarity with the EFCC's operations because he served previously as Chief of Staff to the Executive Chairman and Secretary to the Commission. He has over 22 years of experience in as a seasoned lawyer and in regulatory compliance, consulting, fraud management. So let's see what happens. And I think that his years of experience and in his field, he looks a square peg in a square hole. And like I said, there are ways to balance things up. So his experience, his exposure, his familiarity with the AFCC should suffice.
I think if you look at, the style of our president, looking at his recent appointments, he believes so much in people who can deliver, not just about the experience or not just the conventional kind of people who has been in that structure, but people who can make a difference. And I want to believe he has, he believes this man can deliver. He's looking at his experience when it comes to fraud management, because he has acquired years of experience when it comes to fraud management and, corporate intelligence. I'm hoping the president is thinking he's going to bring this to that commission to see how he can make it better, because you must understand that that kind of commission is very sensitive. You have to deal with corruption, and when you are dealing with corruption, don't forget, former president said corruption could also fight back. So I'm looking forward to a situation whereby the commission will dispense its duty as is being expected, and this time around we won't have the kind of controversy trailing whoever becomes the EFCC chairman. And I also think the Attorney General is also there to advise the president when it comes to striking balance between the issue of qualification and then the provision of the act.
And he being a lawyer, I'm hoping he will bring some civility to the EFCC, because in recent times we've seen some display of rascality, so to speak, in the way they carry out their duties. So let's hope it brings some civility into the EFCC.
All right, let's move on to the education sector now, where in order to improve access to quality education and address the shortage of university admissions in Nigeria, the National University Commission has granted permission for the London Academy of Business School in collaboration with the University of Sutherland, United Kingdom, to operate in Nigeria. You know, the NUC has granted the London Academy of Business School to operate in Nigeria. I think this will reduce the trend of people traveling to UK, the jackpot thing.
Will it reduce it? I don't think it will. It may just be like if you can't go to where you want to go, well, it is still here for you. Maybe that's just the way some people will look at it, but a lot of people will still want to travel. It's not just because they don't think that the educational system here can offer them the quality of education that they would get over there. There are lots of reasons to it. There are a lot of strings attached to the wanting to study abroad. That we all know clearly. But I like the fact that they're coming here, and so that should provide more channels for people to be educated in the business world, and it's good that they're coming.
Well, the world is a global village, and so you should be able to study at the comfort of your home and then acquire a degree. And I think that's the efficiency this collaboration is bringing into the system. Sam, what do you think?
No, great. It's a global best practice. Some of the major universities across the world always have campuses and exchange centers in other jurisdictions where they're able to provide service. So NUC doing this is a welcome development, and in my view, this will reduce the stress on the foreign exchange regime. When people now have access rather than going to the UK to do this study, then it's at our doorstep. And I know a lot of schools in the Middle East, in Doha, in Dubai. You have a lot of universities, even from Japan, that have campuses in those jurisdictions, and that has helped to create some synergy in terms of educational development, and that will impact on people back home here rather than people just wanting to go outside to study. I think this is a great development and is welcoming.
I also like the fact that they emphasize on the fact that the same standard that you have in UK, you're also going to have the same standard here. And then it's going to be in compliance with NUC guidelines. You know, NUC has guidelines when it comes to university, the structure of university, and I'm happy this is happening. For me, I think it's a way to also cover the shortfall when it comes to international admissions. You know, people want to have international certification, which is important because the world is a global village now. You might want to travel to the other part of the world to also do businesses or also continue or do something related to your career. So I think this will also give room for people who want to take advantage of that. Let's look at NDDC this time around. You know, the House of Representatives has confirmed the presidential appointees to the board and management of the Niger Delta Development Commission. This commission has also been in the news. You remember what happened with the former, handler and the drama that played out at the National Assembly. Over the years, there have been a series of allegations of corruption, misappropriation when it comes to NDDC. And this commission was designated to address the plight of the Niger Delta people, to see what they can do to improve the plight of people living in that area. If you have visited that area in recent times, you discover that what they are going through, it's not a joke when it comes to infrastructure, the kind of environmental issues they are dealing with. But this commission has been put in place to address all these challenges. But over the years, there have been allegations of corruption, diversion of funds, projects not being implemented. And now with the new board coming on board, I hope there will be difference. Sam, what do you think?
Well, I hope there will be a difference. I think I just use this opportunity to see Shedu ABA walk the talk, particularly from the perspective of the master plan to develop the Niger Delta. There's been too much politics with the NDDC, and I think this new board must take cognizance of the mistake of the past and see how they can forge a new direction for the Niger Delta, particularly work within the master plan and do less of politics in terms of the development of that area.
Well, like you rightly mentioned, politics, because the way politics has missed so much with the running of the NDDC is part of the reason why there is less development there. And when you mix politics with something that or is supposed to be a tool for development, you will have all kinds of things happen. The mission would not be clear. And then people will do things the way they want to. They will help themselves to fund, because at that time, no one is actually pursuing the interest of the people that they're meant to serve. It's all about power tussle. It's all about helping yourself to the funds of the people. And it also, someone has oftentimes made mention of how the books of the NDDC changed over time. There initially, when the commission was set up, they were spending 80% of the resources or funds allocated to them for developmental projects and 20% for overhead costs. But after a while, it did change. Now, I don't even know if what they spend for developmental projects will be up to 20% now of the funds allocated. Because when you get to Niger Delta regions, what you see are just scattered projects. You know, little things that you're trying to equate it with the amount of money that goes into the commission and is not adding up at all in your head, not to talk about when you do the remat on the book. So it's a far cry from what it should be. But having people from that area then now, I think they should be more concerned about what happens to their region, because if you're not concerned about what happens in your home, then you have no one to hold when you live there, and then people begin to run things in the way they should not be. So I also think that people in the Niger Delta should get involved, should hold these people accountable, ensure that they are aware of the runnings, aware of their locations, aware of the project they monitor. That's part of the way that they can make them sit up and do what they are called to do.
That's great. All right, let's move on. The next story is about the Federal Fire Service, the rebranding that is to take place in that service. The federal government is set to embark on the comprehensive rebranding of the Federal Fire Service in coming months. This transformation will not only involve a change in name, but will also broaden the service's functions. I'm happy they said not just in the name only, but also in functions that has to be the fire service. Sam, let me start with you.
Well, corporate rebranding is important to energize the vision of the Nigerian Fire Service. But like you mentioned, it's beyond corporate rebranding. What are the investment in terms of personnel, in terms of equipment, to meet with the demand of firefighting? I think for me, those are the key issues that the rebranding should take care of. Just beyond the rebranding for the sake of rebranding may not really provide a milestone, but there should be more investment in terms of the human resource, in terms of maintenance, in terms of equipment, so that people can respond to disaster or fire when the need occur. Then they should improve on how to put some levels of water hydrant points in various cities, and when there's an outbreak of fire, they have water to fight fire. I think that for me would be the rebranding.
What's your take on the level of response when it comes to, you know, risk management or fire management or fire outbreak management in recent times?
I think there's no adequate investment in that sector. They have broken down vehicles that are just stationed within those fire services. So I think the rebranding should take cognizance of the state of the equipment and the level of training for the firefighter, so that we can move from a regime where there's a fire outbreak somewhere. It takes the fireman hours and days to get to the point of fire.
According to the report, the training will involve risk assessment, information collection, protecting the health and safety of workers, because this is quite important. Talking about their insurance, you talk about their safety. If you expect people to save people, they also need to be ensured that they have their own security, they have their own cover. When it comes to insurance, these things are quite important. this will motivate them to always want to give their best. When you're in a service whereby you know the resources that ought to make your work easier are not being provided, you're not being motivated. So I'm happy this kind of rebranding is tailored towards addressing all these things. When it comes to equipment, the trucks, you know, you'll be motivated to do more. And then it also put them in a position to be able to solve more problems when it comes to disaster management, issue of fire, you know, management. And for me, in recent times, they are doing well, but they can do more when it comes to response, the level of response, when it comes to equipment, like Sam said, and this training is meant to address all this.
Yes, and I think another thing that should be considered is the siting of the fire service. I don't think it's safe to have just maybe a location. You see, this is the office of the Federal Fire Service, and they're somewhere in town. Maybe they can have like trucks positioned at certain parts of cities, because there are locations where you know, oh, it's quite likely for fire outbreak to happen in a place like that. Oftentimes we hear of fire outbreak in markets. We can have fire trucks located there. So when things like that happen, it's quite easy for them to move, because one of the reasons why it takes a lot of time for them to get to the fire, where fire is, where there's been a fire outbreak, is the distance too. And we also hear things, oh, there is no fuel and all of that. Well, I do hope, like every other person here, is hoping that those will be a thing of the past. We'll begin to see them more active. But I think we should begin to have really hydro points located strategically in parts of the city, so that when something like that happens, instead of the fire service coming from a far distance, they just radio maybe the one close to them to move to the point for rescue.
All right, so let's move on to the Ministry of Solid Minerals, where the Minister, Dele Alake, says no Nigerian state government possess the constitutional authority to ban mining activities. You know, when it comes to solid minerals, it's part of what you have on the exclusive list of the federal government, and the Minister is emphasizing that no state has that power as we speak, because the Constitution provides that that power it should be exercised by the federal government, not by states, not even by local government, because when it comes to solid minerals, those things are part of the things that are on the exclusive list, just like electricity and the rest of them. And until that act or constitution is amended, that power cannot be given to states. And that's why the minister is coming up with this directive to say that, A, to caution state government that you can't go that route. This is just the prerogative of the federal government to determine what happens when it comes to solid minerals, in terms of licensing, in terms of regulation and the operation. Sam, what do you think? There's this argument, they need to decentralize, administration of resources.
Well, that if you look at the politics of that, is a tall order, but I think it's desirable to see how we can move some other items further from the exclusive list into the concurrent list in particular. But it's not sufficient to make a pronouncement on the exclusivity of the federal government to issue license. What is the federal government doing about illegal miners that dots some of those spaces? I think that should be more uppermost in the mind of the Minister for Solid Mineral. To what extent can we put some control measures into illegal mining, illegal exploitations of some of these mineral resources, and see how we can put proper investment in those places so that we can exploit those resources for the greater benefits and for the common good of Nigeria. I think that would be better, not really focusing on that we are in charge, but there are a lot of illegal mining all over the country. Even there are reports that there are other nationals who are exploiting those minerals for their personal advantage. So the focus should be how you can clean up that sector so that we can drive more revenue into the system. My view.
Don't you think there's need to amend the Constitution, provide a leverage for states to, take advantage of the resources in the area? There's this argument, which is what is leading to this hostility.
No, I think I mentioned that earlier. I'm saying that for now, it's a tall order, but there's a need to pull some of these items from the exclusive list into the concurrent list, even up to the residual list, so that those resources can be exploited by state government and see how we can unbundle the too much responsibility that is at the center. In that regard, yes, there's a need, but there's a constitutional provision that must, okay, like in recent time, the issues of power generation has been dealt with. That has been moved from the exclusive list into the concurrent list. So states can now generate power and put that on the national grid. So we expect that to happen in solid mineral. And the issues of resource control, there has been a major debate vis-a-vis the concept of federalism will always be a major issue. You talk about devolution of power, not just power alone. You should devolve resources to federation units to have access and just pay tax at the center. And this were what happened during the period where we practice regionalism in Nigeria, where various regions have access to their resources, they mine their resources, and they pay taxes to the center. I think federalism in Nigeria is a work in progress, and I think in the nearest future, the clamor to move solid mineral in particular, in this case, into the concurrent list, if possible, into the resident list as well.
With the present structure, you know, what the minister is even saying is that states can even engage in mining. You know, they can be a player, a stakeholder in that sector, but they have to follow due process, you know, and obtain license, because they don't have the power. Now, the clarity is the states don't have power to ban mining, you know, but they can be a player in that sector. They engage in that business by following due processes and obtaining license. Even there are private individuals too who can also engage in mining, but what is required is you have to go through due processes and then obtain the license. But to go the route of banning, you know, mining, which is what the minister is talking about.
I want to look at it first from the reason why states want to ban mining. What activities have been ongoing to necessitate banning? So I think that's what the Ministry of Solid Minerals should first of all look at, because they're at the federal level. Are they in every state where mining activities are ongoing to monitor what actually happens? The mining activity could be constituting nuisance and creating security threats and tensions around the state.
Especially the activities of illegal miners.
To make state governments want to ban the activities so that it doesn't result to a situation where there are loss of lives and even property. So I think that they should also be alive to their responsibilities. For every state where mining activities are ongoing, then the ministry should have a strong presence there to oversee what exactly goes on there. Because if you're far from there and then the activities is creating some tension, then the state governments have no option than to wade in. And wading in may mean outright ban. So yes, good enough, they talked about procedures. I think they should work in collaboration, so it doesn't seem like one is a power tussle, one is trying to lord it over the other, but collaboration is needed and they need to do more monitoring.
I even believe instead of going the route of banning, it's just to ban, you know, the outright, you know, mining business in those states. What they should do is to look at how they can control the activities of illegal miners. That should be the focus, because you can't say because you want to stop illegal miners from, you know, from coming to those areas. You can't also stop those who want to do business legitimately, you know, from doing business. Those who have the licenses, they have to operate in that sector. Those who have followed the due process, they ought to do business because they are paid for those things and they need to make money and they need to make these things available. So if the focus is to curb the activities of illegal miners, then they need to go another route by partnering with security agencies, even with the traditional rulers and the local in that area, to provide a collaborative effort for them to be able to curtail the activities of these illegal miners. Because you agree with me, they know them. And some of these people are on ground, they know the terrain, so it's easier for them to collaborate with security agencies and even provide what we call native intelligence for the security agencies to be able to curb the activities of these miners. So I think this should be the focus rather than going the route that they don't have.
Yes, I agree, but they may also have resorted to that because since the state government did not issue the license, to curtail the activities may be difficult. So how do you give instructions to people that you did not bring in the first place? So it may just be as a thing of, oh, nobody minds, totally. So that now draws the attention of the federal authority to say, okay, what is going on here? So collaboration will be best, so that they know exactly what happens. The state governments may have done that as maybe one way to just shut everything down, pending when things are done rightly.
Let me bring Sam into this. What do you think can still be done to curtail the activities of illegal miners who are constituting threat in that industry?
I think the Ministry of Solid Mineral must be up and doing in terms of how they can sanitize that industry. I know they have issued a lot of licenses to people to exploit those minerals, but essentially, who are the major player in that industry in particular? When you make a comparison between oil and gas, where you have a major player, I think they just need to clean that. They need to update their seismic data analysis and find a way. I do know that the minister had some discussion with some major mineral companies in his recent engagement outside Nigeria. He should bring major players and find a way to sanitize the illegal mining that is so pervasive in that industry. Let's just clean it up, just like oil and gas, and see how we can pull more resources from that sector. Then in terms of their locational agencies, they should be up and doing, and like Blessing mentioned earlier, there should be more collaboration. Some states have even units or departments or ministries of solid minerals. So to what extent can they collaborate to see how they can even get partners to exploit and giving licenses to major stakeholders in that industry to reduce this illegal mining that has been so pervasive, particularly in solid mineral.
All right, with that call to action, we have to wrap up this news analysis. Sam, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us on this segment.
My pleasure, Femi.
All right. We'll go on a short break now to take a special report on risk reduction, because today is International Day for Risk Reduction, and we'll be right back to have more discussions. Stay with us.
The International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, IDDRR, stands as a beacon of global cooperation and resilience. Established by the United Nations General Assembly in 1989, marking over 3 decades of notable progress in addressing global disaster challenges. This annual observance has evolved to become an important moment for nations and communities worldwide. This year's theme, Fighting Inequality for a Resilient Future, highlights the fact that disasters inordinately impact the most vulnerable people and communities. When a disaster strikes, the poor and marginalized are often the hardest hit because they have less access to resources and information. And this led to the urgent recognition of the need to address and mitigate the impact of disasters on community and nations. While its early years focused on disaster response and recovery, a paradigm shift occurred as the importance of proactive measures for disaster risk reduction gained prominence. Today, on the occasion of the 2023 International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, nations find themselves at a critical crossroads. Climate change, urbanization, and a complex interplay of factors demand a renewed commitment to building resilient communities. IDDR serves as a rallying point for governments, non-governmental organizations, and communities to exchange knowledge, share best practices, and renew their dedication to reducing disaster risk, while reinforcing the idea that through unity and proactive measures, we can shape a future where communities are not merely survivors but resilient thrivers in the face of adversity. Grace Komolafe, Souk News. In the realm of sport, where cheers echo through time and unite communities under the same sky, tribes emerge, each adorned in the vibrant passion, vying for triumph or a tale of resilience. It's more than a contest or business. To some, it is for pleasure and relaxation. Nigeria's sports development initiatives recently have ushered in a new era of progress. Government bodies and organizations have been actively investing in sports infrastructure, including stadiums, training facilities, and sports academies, offering athletes better resources and opportunities to develop their skills. At the grassroots level, the country has focused on nurturing young talents through local sport clubs and schools. These organizations have arranged for training programs and competition to identify and groom promising athletes from an early age, resulting in Nigeria producing world-class athletes across various sports disciplines. Sport business in Nigeria is also flourishing with a surge in sponsorship deals and endorsement. Major corporations recognize the potential of sport as a marketing platform, fostering partnership with athletes and sports organizations. This financial support boosts athletes' career and enhances the visibility and popularity of sports. As the industry continues to evolve, technology has profoundly impacted its activities, including introducing online events. It has ushered in advanced data analytics, performance tracking, and improved training methods, empowering athletes and teams to optimize performance and strategize effectively. In betting, it has made wagering more accessible and engaging through online platforms, mobile apps, live streaming, and real-time updates. While it has enhanced the overall experience, there are concerns about addiction, fair play, and data policy, necessitating a careful balance between technology advancement and responsible usage in this domain. The media has also played a vital role in expanding the industry in Nigeria and across the world, giving it increased coverage on both television and online platforms with a larger audience and generating heightened interest in sports. This favorable environment has attracted advertisers and sponsors seeking to engage with a broader consumer base through sport-related content and encouraging professional leagues to spring up in various sports, including football, basketball, and athletics. These leagues offer athletes a platform to compete at a higher level and showcase their skills while also gaining popularity. As sport activities continue to expand, more investment is key, and there is a need for government and stakeholders to look at every challenges surrounding this industry, especially as it directly affects athletes, lovers of sport, and the economy. Grace Komolafe, Soup News.
The Three Wise Men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of three men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodu Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers knotted across images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodu Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the Eko greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, Suk Enlightenment.
Refineries are not working.
Does it stop at giving a directive? What should be done to ensure that this is done?
One of the factors being identified by our key persons is the issue of transportation. For you to have a sustainable city, you must have a deliberate attempt to have a master plan.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, that special report set the pace for our discussion and our conversation for today. You know, talking about sport business. We'll be looking at sport business in Nigeria. What do you need to do to take advantage of the benefits and, you know, the potential when it comes to sport business? And precisely, we'll be looking at sport betting business in Nigeria. It's a huge thing in Nigeria, which has attracted a lot of investors in recent times. A lot of Nigerians are taking advantage of, you know, sport betting business to earn a living and to even make some gains. To shed more light on this, we are being joined by Paul Okoji. Paul is a journalist and a media consultant. Paul, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Yes, good morning.
Glad to have you join us, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, great. Now, before we discuss the issue of sport betting business in Nigeria, I would like to have your take on the final draw that was done yesterday on the Africa Cup of Nations, where Nigeria falls to, you know, Nigeria is now in Group A of that, the team enlisted to participate in the African Cup of Nations. What's your take on this? I would like you to react to this first before we go to the issue of sport business.
Well, it's a beautiful thing that Nigeria is on the Group A, but you know, Group A is always a very tough group. So it's obvious that they're not going to have an easy ride in that group. But at the same time, it's also good for business because once you start making predictions, you'll be able to understand if Nigeria would survive, you know, that group. Group A is always very tough, but I mean, it's a good thing that we're in Group A.
All right, great. That will gladden some Nigerians that were in Group A, and it's a good thing for us. All right, let's go to sport, you know, bet business now. Talk to us. Why is this a big deal in Nigeria? Why is it a source of attraction to young people in recent times?
First of all, I'm going to start from I'm going to start from the economic perspective. The reason why I'm going to start from the economic perspective is that a lot of times, people are always looking for extra income, and the the reason why they get involved in this thing is because they want extra income for them to be able to survive, for them to be able to do certain things. So they have to try to play lottery or bet, and most especially if they are lovers of the game, football. So they always want to check and see how they can, you know, try, stake and make money. So that's why a lot of people get involved in these things called gambling. I wouldn't call it gambling. Basically, I would just call it betting. You want to try a lot like coupon, something like that. So it's a whole lot, but at the end of the day, we just want to make extra money to take care of extra things, just by luck.
Making extra money. How much of extra money do people actually make from betting? Because you see the betting centers filled with both the young and even these days you have the elderly. And it's not even a thing for a specific gender anymore. There are women into sports betting. And it seems like some persons is just a streak of luck. Or is it something that people need to study the game? You must have deep knowledge or football, because a lot of bettings happen on football matches for you to make money out of it. How does it work really?
Well, let me put it like this, so that you can get a better understanding. It's I wouldn't say it's luck. I would say, okay, I'll give you a little analogy. Let's say you know how good Chelsea is, you know how good Manchester United is, and now Chelsea and Manchester United are going to play. Now you want to put a stake. Now you have to look at Chelsea's, striking team, their ability to score goals. Okay, every time Chelsea plays, who scored the goals, and how many goals do you think Chelsea will put in the back of Manchester's net? Then you look at Manchester as well. Manchester, they're also very good with goals. They have very good striking. They have very good defense. So they won't allow goals to come in. So you can say, okay, Manchester, Chelsea, 1-1. You have made a prediction because you know that they are both tough and the game is going to be very difficult. So you don't put a lot in. So you say, okay, let's see, they're going to get a draw. And by the time you put that stake in, and at the end of the day, they actually come up with a draw because they are both very solid. You've won. So it is not luck. It is based on what you know. You have to do a lot of thinking when you want to put a stake in, you want to bet. You do a lot of thinking. You check out the clubs, the team, how they play, how effective they are before you can say, okay, let me try and see if these people are going to get a draw or Chelsea is going to win. Mind you, you know why you feel Chelsea is going to win. Mind you, so it's kind of a brain test where you get to really know how you make analysis of situation and football predictions.
Let's look at the issue of morality. There are people who have this perception or negative perception about betting, being a form of business, and they have this, reserved attitude when it comes to betting. And then how do you strike the balance between making money or doing it as a business and then preventing addiction?
So we have to separate betting and lottery. And though it's part of lottery, but betting is quite different from lottery because, like I myself, I have a lottery game, and we're also working on a betting platform as well to add to what we're already doing. But that you have to do a couple of things for you to be able to do betting. There is nothing okay, gambling, I wouldn't call it because I'm sorry I'm always using the word gambling, but I would just say you trying to make extra income or doing something extra, it's not really something that you're going to become addictive of because as human beings, we are addictive of different things. We become addictive to whatever it is that benefits or that suits us or that works for us. Like if you have the urge to always read, you just find yourself reading anywhere, whether you're in a bus, whether you're in a taxi, whether you're in your office, whether you're in your public place, you're always reading. And you know how people will look at you like, what's wrong with this bookworm? And that's the same thing when it comes to betting. You're only doing it because at the end of the day, if you do it very well, you definitely make money. So it's better to you. So as long as it's something that you're going to make money, you keep trying, and definitely it's just it. You make money. If you're not lucky, you try again.
All right, the Nigerian betting market is valued at $2 billion with an estimated 60 million people betting daily. That report came out in May 2023. So there's a huge market for betting in Nigeria. But looking at the business side, how do these businesses sustain? Do they ever suffer loss sometimes? And what could lead to a betting platform suffering losses?
The Nigerian market is very unpredictable because of regulations. And everybody just keep looking at this thing like, oh, they're raking in billions, so this is what billions, so there's a lot of money. But people don't forget that these things create employment, and not only creates employment, it takes a lot of money to service their system, for their system to be very active, for their system to be very responsive, and for the system to always work whenever people are using their system. So it's capital intensive. But like people will say, because people are putting money, there are people who are pressing their calculators, but they never look into all the work that is being put in to keep that thing working. And most of the time, government, they will always come in to say, okay, you're not doing this properly or you're not doing that properly. But which is good that they're regulating it. But at the same time, they should also understand that people who are in this business are also struggling. It's not because they are making money or because the industry is worth $2 billion. It's just simple. How do this business not look fraudulent? How do this business people don't say, oh, it's not working, they're cheating me or something. It's being managed by people. So it's a kind of business that, aside from it working, government should also look at the economic aspect of it, how it benefits Nigerians. So it's worth that amount, but at the end of the day, Nigerians are also cashing out from it as well. Nobody's losing. Some people lost here, you try again, you win something little. It's just a business that has to be sustained, and the government should try and relax some of these policies so that other people who want to invest in it can invest in it. And I also encourage the government to also get involved in it by themselves, because when you're not involved, you're not doing the business, you will not understand what the people who are doing the business are going through. You just end up making them pay for everything that is being done. So that's just how I see it. So it's a very good business, and government should encourage people to get into betting and also get involved as well.
All right, let's still dwell more on the gains of this business. I would like you to elaborate on the gains, looking at the part of the business owner and those who are engaging in this business. There are two parts to it, on the side of the business owner and those who are patronizing this business. Talk to us more about the gains for the business owners and those who are patronizing the business.
The gains actually, before you set up a betting business or lottery business, it's millions of naira. That's what you pay to the government. And when you spend that money, it's capital intensive. When you spend all that money to set up, maybe across states, you know how states are now. They've legalized it, but you have to pay states money. After you pay government or the federal government, the lottery commission, you give them money as well. And when you pay, by the time you pay and pay, like in Lagos State alone takes like 200 million from people who wants to do betting in Lagos State, you know, lottery, whatever it is. So just imagine you pay that kind of money in just Lagos State alone, because in Lagos State they keep feeling like it's the market, so everybody wants to be there. But I mean that's capital intensive. It sucks the owner a lot of money. You spend close to like 1 or even 2 billion, and just imagine you borrow that money from the bank for you to be able to do that business. At the end of the day, you know, you're not able to really get off the ground. Like some of the challenges I've been dealing with lately, you're not able to get off the ground. Even if you get off the ground, it's very difficult for you to run because you don't have enough money, because you know you've paid all the money that you need to pay for you to be able to do this business. So there is no much gains. Like it will take you 5 or 10 years before you start making profit. But the most important thing is you have to care about the people who are actually playing the game, which means those people who play, when they win, they should be able to get their money. And that's very important, because no matter how much you think have been put in, it may not just be enough. What if you know you have people playing, putting in stake, and at the end of the day, oh, your profit is like, let's say 10 million and somebody wins 15 million. What are you going to do? You have to pay the person 15 million. And where are you going to get the money from? So you all these things have to be understood properly. It's not because people just look at the industry and say this industry is what such and such, but you don't understand what that industry is doing to survive, how they sustain that business, how they have to keep, you know, that business running and paying their staffs and paying people who win, and you know how much have they made per day before you look at the month, before you look at the year, or you know per quarter. All these things are challenges. So it's not easy for the business owner. I must be very frank. It's not easy for them, because when you have invested a lot of money, which is you know, let's say your capital, you have offices virtually in you know most of the states, and you are servicing these offices. You have computers there. You have to pay for your internet. You have to do a lot of things to keep these offices running, and making sure that anybody who gets involved with your business has exactly what they want and their systems are not down. So it's a lot. And I mean, people should try to understand the reason why they're doing all these things is because they want to satisfy their customers. But at the end of the day, there are other people who are, you know, who always come and say, no, you're making a lot of money. And, you know, those people who come and say you're making a lot of money, they've never run that kind of business before. So they wouldn't understand what it means to survive in that kind of business. So I always tell them, if you think I'm making a lot of money, please, why don't you just go and get a license, get everything, and start your own and see how it feels like.
All right. So some of those challenges that you just mentioned, what innovations are there or exist in other climes that minimize the challenges? You talked about having offices in different places, having to run your offices. Is there a way technology or some innovations can minimize these challenges?
Yeah, some of those technologies are already in place, and they're actually doing very great. Like now, you have electronic agents where people just be online and just doing what they have to do to just make sure they get you in. Like I will use an example of I don't want to mention the name because you know example of a particular betting platform in Nigeria. They have this code where you have to use somebody's code to get in and you know get extra money and use the extra money to play. So that is also part of the innovation for you to be able to reduce some of the other challenges that you will have, which is the physical challenges that you have as a betting company. So people are being very creative these days, and they are doing very well, which is very good, and it's lovely. But most importantly, we shouldn't forget that in as much as we're trying to use technology to solve some of these challenges and get more people involved in it, we also have to make sure that it's used in a proper way so that people don't lose appetite to play the game. And it has to be very easy as well. It has to be made easy. So if anybody wants to get in, it has to be easy for you to get in. And also, if you want to get out, it has to be easy for you to get out. So these innovations are rightly there. They're already functioning, and it's beautiful. It keeps improving by the day. And I believe, within a couple of months or years, betting or lottery would really change and will look very beautiful.
All right, that's great. For those who want to give this business a try, I would like you to educate them on the basic requirements. Apart from capital, we know capital is important. And then how much will it be required when it comes to capital? And then talk about other basic requirements when it comes to starting this business.
Well, it took me close to 3 years for me to be able to get to where I was. It's not, sorry, where I am. It's not rosy. I'm just going to be very honest. You have to put in a lot of money in it, and you have to do a lot of paperwork, which I don't know. But if I just say that here, and I would just look at you, just giving it cheap. But anybody who wants to get involved in a lottery business, first of all, you have to have a company registered. That's number one. Number two, you go to the lottery commission and they have to give you the National Lottery Regulatory Commission. They have to give you the criteria for you to partake in the business, and they have to look at your CAC registration and make sure that it's actually up to what they want. They will tell you exactly what to do. If you are going into betting, if it's just lottery, whatever it is you want to do, they will tell you and they will guide you through the process. And after that, it will take time. You have to pay them the regulatory fee for you to obtain your permit. And then once you have your permit, you have to make sure that every requirement, everything they've asked you to do, it's properly done. And they will come check you out, make sure that you're good before you can start operations. But in Nigeria, you just can't start a business. The state government will come in and to check you out to make sure that you're good. And also the Consumer Protection Council. You have to make sure that you have to make sure you do the right things. It's a lot, and in Nigeria, it baffles me, but I just keep wondering why we have so many agencies checking you out, and unfortunately, they don't understand what you're going through, and they can't just put everything together in one box and say, okay, if you want this, just grab it, and this is what it's going to cost you. So I don't know, but I guess it's just how the government chooses to function and operate. But it's a very, very capital intensive business. So sometimes when people come to me and say, I like to do this business, I say, you know what? You have to invest first. You have to learn because you need somebody to teach you. And once you know it and you have worked with someone by, partaking, then you can branch out and go do your own because if I throw you into the ocean like that, you can't swim.
Okay, let's look at the markets, navigating the market space. There are big players, already known names. So how does a small player compete in a market like that? How do you draw, I don't want to use the word gamblers, but those who would bet, how do you draw them to you, being a small player, running against the big names in the industry?
I don't want the big player to steal my idea because I'm in a business to also chase them out. So, and chase them out and also, get hold of the system as well. The small players should do the needful. They know what to do. And most especially, you have to work on marketing and advertisement for you to be able to get people into your game. Because the big players, they already know what they're doing, and because they know what they're doing, and their structures are well in position to be able to get the people's attention, So what is very critical now is that if you want to get into business, you're a small player, just do the needful. You have to do a lot of marketing for you to be able to get the required attention, and you have to make sure that your services are very easy and bright for people to say, okay, I want to try here. Let me also see if something will come out from here. So you just keep trying. So the small players should be very ready to do a lot of advertisement of marketing. And most importantly, people need to trust their products.
All right. I observe in the course of our interaction, you keep talking about the challenges, sounding this warning or this alarm that is not a tea party because people are looking at the monitoring aspect. Does that mean there are no gains? And then what do you think can still be done to improve the plight of business owners, especially in Nigeria? And perhaps you can also share with us your experience since you've been in this business.
I'm not a bureaucrat, so I'm not a government agent. I'm a businessman, and we take risk. And we taking risk means that yeah, sometimes you have some money that you can use to buy property and have a house or buy a car or do something, but you say no. Let me put this in this business. Maybe with time, this business is going to grow. So in as much as we look at all these challenges, um, I can remember vividly when I started. It was a real struggle. Some of the things we were doing were opening the eyes of the government agencies, and they were coming in. So at a point in time, I got kind of very wary because I had to ask someone a question one time. I said, "How come you guys come up with policies every 6 months? You don't even wait to see how the policy works. If you're going to give it like 5 years before you review or 2 years before you review." And I also asked the question and said, you can't throw away a basket of tomatoes just because one tomatoes is bad. Just look for that one bad tomatoes and just put it out and allow the other tomatoes to break. But in this country, what I've noticed is that they want to kill a whole business just because someone did something wrong. They want to kill all the business. All the business will be under attack. So you don't punish a bunch because of a few. And I've always been in this position where I say, no, what the government should do is if somebody is coming into a business fresh and clean, there are so many incentives that can be given to this business. In as much as the government needs money, if you ask me to pay you 200 million naira for me to have a license, you shouldn't just take 200 million naira from me. I just dip my hand in the pot to give you 200 million naira because I want a license. No, you have to think about my business, how it's going to survive for the next 10 years, and tell me, well, this 200 million naira, you can pay it in the next 10 years, then we can be part of your business as a stakeholder. We're going to invest, but we're going to take this money in such and such time. Then you also go to like maybe the FIRS and let them know that okay, I've started business. They will come and check that your business is really running. Is it running? Okay, if it's not running, okay, we can give you this leverage. Then we can give you tax waiver for maybe some years or some months or however. So the government needs to come in a way whereby they don't kill a business before it is born. It's like stillbirths. A woman is pregnant for 9 months, and at the ninth month, and then the hour where she's supposed to put to bed, she gives birth, and the child is dead. And that is one of the problems we have in this country because their policies is always killing business. I've been through a lot, and now, especially now that the country is very funky. I was trying to do the business where dollar was how much? Dollar was two something, 300 and something, and now dollar is 1,000. So how do I survive? And tomorrow somebody comes from the government agency and says, "Oh, you didn't pay me." You can imagine you don't know what I am going through. And at the end of the day, they just feel like you're making money. If you want to see, I have nothing to hide. I can show you. I'm not making anything. I'm still, struggling with what I'm doing. And they still don't want to understand because they feel like it's a law, it's a law, it's a law. It doesn't work that way. How it should work is simple. If you are regulating, you can also be part of the business, not just regulating. Be part of the business because that business employs people. You might employ your own brother, your sister, your niece, your nephew, your uncle. And if they have their means of survival from that place, and because there is a mistake or there's something somewhere, you shut it down, you send your niece, your uncle, your brother out of business or out of work. They become jobless. They go into the class of unemployment. So what I think government should do is they should be part of this business. They should be part of this business. They shouldn't just sit there and be telling people what to do, and they have never run a business before. So whatever agency wants money from you should invest in the business, put the money in the business, run it so that when you are talking to people who want to be part of the business, because you have an experience, you know what to tell them, you know how to direct them to go about the business. And it's that simple. But unfortunately, it's about distraction.
Okay, let's look at government being a part of this business. But you understand that there is or there are more concerns about this kind of business because it is perceived as gambling. What can change that perception in order for government and possibly other collaborations to come in to this business? A lot of people still see it as that.
I mean, I can understand when people say they see it as gambling, but we have to understand that this is an old form of business. So there are no religion accepts that. But at the end of the day, I think we live in a secular society, and your views based on your religion is personal. But unfortunately, religion is driving all of us crazy. People are just thinking about it differently. Government needs money. And aside from governments need money, government also have to make sure that whatever is bringing money to their table is properly managed. So government getting involved in this business simply means that they should be part of the business. Like, I'll give an example. Like in the United States, no individual runs a lottery business. It's run by the states. The states have to get federal license. Like the state of Virginia has, New York have, these things there is legal, where the states just run them. I think the only place that is quite independent is Las Vegas, but they are being regulated. So now, what people don't understand in this country, especially what government needs to do, is you cannot be telling people how to do business when you are not in that business. It baffles me that, they make all these excuses, it's because of corruption. No. If you want to be part of this business, you can have people who are experienced in the business, who have been in the business, to manage the business.
All right,
it's called, I think there is a law that says for a public-private partnership. So you can have, private managers. There's nothing wrong in that, but you can be the owner. So government should try and get involved in the business so that they be able to advise people on what to do when they want to get in that business as well.
That's great, Paul. Thank you very much for your submissions and, looking at the issue of sport business in Nigeria. You've extensively talked about what it takes to start and again. So thank you very much for joining us on Any Extinct this morning.
All right. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
All right. We'll go on a short break now. We'll be right back to discuss more on sport business in Nigeria. Just stay with us.
Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade, and later under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota Market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Market, Souk Enlightenment.
Is still imported because local refineries are not working.
Does it stop at giving a directive? What should be done to ensure that this is done?
One of the factors being identified by our key persons is the issue of transportation. For you to have a sustainable city, you must have a deliberate attempt to have a master plan.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, thank you for staying with us on Early Exchange. And this time around, we want to take a deeper look into the AFCON draw that has showed the groups in which different countries that will participate in the AFCON Championship in 2024, January in Cote d'Ivoire. So Nigeria is in Group A, and yes, there are other reactions regarding that group because the group has Cote d'Ivoire, which is the host nation, Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, and of course Guinea-Bissau. So we have people here who are really sports enthusiasts, and they're also sports analysts to look at this. And they're also Nigerians, so we're looking at what it will mean for us in January when Nigeria goes over to Cote d'Ivoire. Charles is here with me this morning. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Okay, and also Kelvin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. So since that list dropped, and Nigeria's got to know that, oh, Nigeria is in Group A with these countries, there have been several reactions. Some are even saying that perhaps we need to have calculators right now and begin to calculate to if Cote d'Ivoire plays with this, maybe plays with Guinea-Bissau or plays with Equatorial Guinea, and the scoreline is this, so that means there's hope for Nigeria, that kind of situation. Or do we need to begin to have prayer points? Or like our last guest said, that it is a good thing that Nigeria is in Group A. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Okay, I think it's actually a good thing, because checking at the group, I discovered that we have more chances of even qualifying. We have chances of even topping the group, if possible. Equatorial Guinea, we can beat them anytime. If we play as a team, not individually, we will definitely beat them. Guinea-Bissau, definitely, we will still beat them. The only threat here is Cote d'Ivoire. They are the only top team here that I believe can actually stand Nigeria in this group. So we have every chance of qualifying from this group stage.
All right, Charles, what do you think?
Well, I'll go against him by saying, because over my years of watching football is not something you can just sit down and look at the fixtures and say this is how it's going to go. We look at Equatorial Guinea and look at their performances and their fixtures, and the results they've been able to, and the results they've been able to get over the years. You can't just say a walkover, or give it a walkover, like they'll beat. No, it's not like that. If you watch the World Cup, you will see small teams, or teams that you would have popularly called small teams, beat the bigger boys, and you will just say, okay, wow, let's watch. So I cannot just say that it will happen. The chances of Nigeria qualifying from this group are very high, based on numbers, based on players, based on the numbers and the results we have had over the years, and the results we have had in recent time. We beat, was it not, the Sao Tome. We beat them 6-0 the last time. That was our last outing. Yeah. We have a game this evening against Saudi Arabia. So from there, from these results, we'll be able to tell if we'll go far. Because it's not just a factor. It's not just one thing that determines.
All right.
Wait. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I caught you. Now, the reason why I said Nigeria has every chance of qualifying, Nigeria can really beat Equatorial Guinea and Guinea-Bissau, is because checking our last record with this team. Now, with Equatorial Guinea, with 3 times we played them, we won the 3 games. Now, for Guinea-Bissau, we drew 1, we won 1, and we lost 1 to them. Now, we lost 1 to them because we had issue in that game. Nigerians were playing a selfish game. That was why they scored 1. And if you check possession of that game, we took possession. We created more chances than even them. So that's why I can categorically say we will beat these 2 countries. So we know that we've seen cases where the junior team or the underdogs beat the bigger teams. Yeah. It happened in the last World Cup. Yeah. We've seen cases like that, but in this group stage, nothing, we'll win.
All right, Kelvin, I like your optimism, as a Nigerian. I should expect that, But let's look at, the crop of players that we have now, looking at the preparation of the team before this tournament and then going forward. How will you assess, the crop of players that we have, and when it comes to experience?
Okay, when it comes to experience, if we have to judge by experience, I would say Nigeria is the best team in Africa. If we are to judge by experience and the kind of clubs where the kind of club where our players are playing with, we will say Nigeria is the best team in Africa. We have the likes of Osimhen, we have Chukwueze, we have Ndidi, we have Iwobi, and we have a lot of them playing in different big clubs in the Europe. So our team is balanced. But like I said earlier, if we are to play individually, we will lose. But if we play as a team, if we play collectively, we will definitely win.
All right, let me seek Chance's opinion here.
Well, I think we're on the same page. We have a whole lot of firebrand, let me call it firebrand players that are hitting the ground running. We saw the last game where we defeated Sao Tome, and we see the way they were playing, where they played together, the synergy between the midfield and the front players. They was Chukwueze was like, he was on another level, and they were keen to show themselves. They were keen to show that what they can do, to prove themselves. And since we have a new coach, a new boss now, everybody is more or less trying to show that I can do this, trying to, you know, put themselves on the first team, put themselves on the bone of contention. Let me say it like that. They want to be picked. So everybody wants to play, everybody wants to rack up numbers. But when you look at our front three, when you look at Chukwueze, there is Osimhen, there is Kalu. There are so many exciting players. There are so many exciting players playing in top leagues in Europe, and you know, racking in the numbers. So it's good. It's good for our confidence. It's good for the team.
All right, let's look at the players. You've mentioned the quality of players that we have, but sometimes we know there's a kind of surprise that happens when the list of players going for the Nations Cup comes up. It's either some of the players in the top clubs don't have permission from their club to play, or we just have that the formation is different. You're hoping to have certain players as starters. You're having them at the bench for maybe a critical match. For instance, the fear in that group is Cote d'Ivoire. So for Cote d'Ivoire match, you're expecting maybe an Osimhen and some other persons to be there, only for you to see that, first of all, the formation is different, and you have on reserve people who should be starters. So what's the advice for the coach regarding preparation and in his draw up of list of players? Charles?
Well, I think some matches are priority. There are some games that are must win. So you look at the list of players you have and know which one you feel that can perform in certain matches. And also there's a thing of fatigue, especially when when the competition starts, because it's going to be in the middle of the season, towards January. It's going to be in the middle of the season. So those players are coming in from their club where they play club football. So it's going to be difficult to just rush everybody in. So you have to look at fatigue. You have to look at their rest time, because I think they'll be playing three days. So you have to look at the rest time, and it's going to give him headache. Let's be fair. It's going to give him headache because you have exciting players. You also have the work of choosing the players and who has to play when, who has played, and to keep the squad happy. Because if they are not happy, they can't give their best. So there's also what you call rotation. You have to rotate and keep everybody happy. You have to keep the synergy in the team, or else you will not get optimal.
So we keep them happy. What else would need to happen? We know that this is where the NFA comes in. So they have to ensure that the welfare package, and also what other things would need to happen for us to have victory and proceed, not just from the one stage, the group stage, to the other, but to ensure that we clinch the cup, or at least maybe bronze. That was our last performance.
We need the cup this time. We need it. I think player and coach relationship matters. So I think the coach has to create this good relationship between him and the players. Because if you are having an issue with your players, definitely it's going to affect him mentally. So as a coach, you are supposed to, I feel you should actually try as much as possible to know the mental well-being of each of his players, especially the top players. That should be one of his priorities, and that will definitely help us as well.
All right, let me take this to Charles. Let's look at the coach, you know, in terms of experience, capacity, and then the technical crew. You know, you agree with me that most of the challenges or the weakness of most of the African team has to do when it comes to the technical aspect. Now, looking at the Nigerian squad, what's your own assessment?
Well, Jose Peseiro, he used to be a footballer. He used to be a striker. So he has the experience. He can take the game from the player perspective and from the coach perspective. Now his other coaching staff, I know that there are some ex-Nigerian players. I don't really know names, but I know that there are some ex-Nigerian players that are in the squad, part of his training team, and some of his own guys that he came with. So I'm expecting that they have the optimal training, they have the knowledge, they have the capacity to build these players and motivate them when it's needed. And yeah, you talked about NFF and what their role they have to play. When it comes to making promises and not fulfilling them, that's a big issue. You find most of these players reluctant to come play for their country. You also find them complaining, because if your mental well-being is not looked after, you would not be able to perform on the pitch, because it takes both the mental and the physical for you to give up optimal performances. But in aspect of the coach and his coaching staff, I think they are good to go.
Kevin, what's your take on this? What's your view?
Like, I actually agree with him. The coach is actually good, and like he said, it's a former striker, so he might not, he does not know it all. That's why you have this coaching staff. So I think for the attackers, we're definitely good there. And I think one of the issues we had, what I feel we have in this game, is our goalkeeper. Apart from that, the defense, the midfield, and the forwards, perfect. So the coach has done everything possible to create this good forward. The midfield is good, the defense is good, but I think he should actually work more on the goalkeeper.
All right. Charles, what do you make of this development where match bonuses are being delayed? You know, like you said, the welfare of this player is critical. What do you make of this development? What do you expect NFF to do this time around to ensure that we don't have a repeat of this mistake?
Well, it's just a question of their integrity. It's just a question of what they have been elected to do. These are things they are meant to do. We saw the last World Cup where FIFA actually had to pay the players directly, so that they had to boycott the management, that's the NFF, and of all the countries seeking to pay the players directly. I feel like NFF should own up to their responsibility. They should, you know, handle their office with integrity and do their due diligence to the players.
Charles, how do we improve sport administration in Nigeria? What's your take on that? Your advice to NFF on, you know, when it comes to sport generally, not just football now?
Okay, I think Nigerians pay more attention to sport, but the association do not. I'm very sure that at the federal level, they release allocation, they release money for the sports association, but the people in charge there, I think the administration has actually failed at a certain time. Talking about these bonuses that they're supposed to pay players, I think the administration actually failed. Like he said, it has to do with their integrity. The integrity matters a lot. So if they focus, for we as Nigerians to actually build our sports, we at least we've seen what the foreigners does. We can actually focus more on them. We can actually learn from them. Believe that we should understand the fact that football or sport, this sport is actually broad, and it has actually helped a lot of Nigerians as well. So if we want to, we can actually focus more on it. We can focus more on it, trying to pay more attention to the association as well.
All right, let me put the two of you on the sport now as we wrap up. Maybe a little bit of sport betting. Do you think Nigeria is going to win this time around, the AFCON in January? Do you see us going for gold?
The group actually favors us, so we will focus.
So do a prediction.
Well, I see us.
Business now.
Well, I don't know, because football is a game of numbers.
Yeah.
So if you are not able to put in those numbers, you are not going anywhere. So I feel Nigeria has big opportunity, because when you look at other countries, they don't have the caliber of players. Let's say like that caliber of players that we have with the huge experience. I mean, from defense to attack, we have experience of players playing in Europe, of players that have been trained with, you know, facilities that help the body and open their mind. They work with experts in the game. So I feel like Nigeria has to go far. Nigeria should go far.
Okay, but let's look at training together. We know that, yes, we have the players, and for qualifiers, we see maybe some home-based players doing things, but we're going to have a blend of the foreign players and the home-based player. Yeah. But sometimes what we find is that they don't get into camp in time, and so there is no enough time for them to get used to each other. That teamwork doesn't really happen. It takes maybe the first and second match before they begin to understand each other's kind of play and settle in. So what's your advice in that regard?
Okay, since the draw has been done already, the players, they've called them already. I think the ones that are selected, they've called them already. So they start making plan of coming on time for them to actually train together with the home-based players. Because I'm very sure that all Nigeria players playing in Europe, they will be given the opportunity to come to their country, to represent their country for the ones that are called. But the ones that weren't called, that's for them. So I think they should, if they get here 2-3 days before, they can actually, the energy, they just have to find a way to make it work. It is a collective game, not an individual game. It's a collective game, not an individual game. So for the likes of Osimhen and the rest, they can actually get here before, they get it 3 days before their first game. That would actually help as well.
3 days before their first game, isn't that too short? And we know that it is not just the group, because all eyes are on the group. But if you get beyond the group stage, you will meet other countries. There's Cameroon.
That's where the issue. That's where the issue will so come from.
How do we ensure that we don't do this fire brigade approach, and at the end of the day, we make a mess of things?
Well, preparedness. If they can prepare well, so there's an issue you made mention of. Some coaches from Europe don't actually release the players on time.
Even when they are called.
Well, we had of issue of in Villarreal. Chukwueze was delayed. Some were stopped. True. Like, you are important to us, you can't go. We are in the middle of the season. That is where they pay you. They pay you to render your services. Now, I can't be paying you that kind of money, and you are telling me in January you will not be available because you are playing. So that's the issue. So NFF needs to look. The organizers of our competition need to look into when they fix this. It's not always conducive, especially for the players. We find out in Europe that they fix their own international competitions in the summer when the players are at rest, when club football is limited, is at a pause. So why can't we copy, or why can't we imitate them? So for the welfare of our players. You can't have me playing in December. December fixtures are hell. December fixtures are always very, 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 very tight, especially for the players. You find them, especially for those in Premier League, they play on Christmas, and you now expect that I will also travel and come and play in January, to come and play a heated competition. Look at the climate. The climate is not favorable. You play under the sun, in scorching heat, in scorching sun. So these things play. So coming back to your question, Nigeria can go far. So there are things that we would try to do. I know coaches do it. They will drop points so that they will play those that qualify second. Because when you play second, if you win your group, you play Group B, who qualifies second in Group B. So there are mathematics that has to go into this thing.
So at the end of the day, we actually brought in the calculators.
Yes, mathematics go into play.
I don't think this calculating thing should be. We just have to win. Let's just keep winning.
But you have to avoid the big boys. If you don't avoid the big boys, what do you want to go for? There's Algeria.
We know that.
There's Algeria.
There's Morocco.
There's Morocco. There's
Senegal. Nigeria is also giant of Africa.
We used to be. Let's tell us. We used to be.
We are still the. We are still the. Okay, like a guy said, just remove GG. We have become the ants.
I wouldn't want to say Nigeria is the ants when it comes to football. We're still a very strong, formidable team that other teams are still very much scared of. But I think we need to do what is needed. But from what we've seen, calculators will be needed. Prayers too will be needed. People, when the game will be is in January, so we can start praying ahead. They say the god of football is Nigerian.
But we also need to work.
We also need to work.
It's not just about prayer.
And the selection matters also.
Yeah.
The coach just needs to select the right people. It matters a lot.
All right, this is where I would call it a wrap on this discussion. Thank you very much, Charles and Kelvin, for making your football knowledge available for us this morning. Let's go on a quick break and return to other matters concerning sports business. Stay tuned.
I've seen that companies that do well, they are correlated to the kind of leader that they have. What this is about is what I've observed working with leaders over the experience of my career. I've seen two types of leaders. The first type is leading out of fear. And this type of leader is not even manifest in their physical appearance. Leading out of fear, you see those leaders, they appear macho, they seem as if they know what they're doing, shouting here and there. But those externalities conceal a very deep fear of vulnerability. The other type of leader is those that lead out of courage. And those that lead out of courage, it may not show on their men, they don't appear macho, they are not screaming here and there, they're calm. But beneath that calm is a solid rigor of logic, solid empathy, and solid personality of being their true authentic self. If we look at their attitude towards delivery, a leader who is leading out of fear, his mantra is because of. If he's not able to deliver, he gives you an excuse. So take someone like a stockbroker who has a portfolio. When the portfolio is doing well, he takes all the credit. When the portfolio is not doing so well, it's doing poorly, he starts blaming anybody else because of, explaining his failure away. The leader leading out of courage, his attitude towards delivery is a language of in spite of. I'll deliver it in spite of the election, in spite of COVID, in spite of inflation. And that is his attitude. Let us look at these two leaders in their attitude towards accountability. A leader that leads out of fear is externally focused in accountability. He never believes it's him. Oh, is this my staff? Oh, is this my colleague? Always blame someone. A leader leading out of courage, his attitude towards accountability is internally focused. Take responsibility where I've dropped the ball. Protect my team. I can go back and deal with the team, but I'll never bring anybody out and say, it is him. And that is the leader that people like to follow. I've seen that companies that do well, they are correlated to the kind of leader that they have. Companies that have leaders leading out of courage exceed expectation. And companies that have leaders leading out of fear always explain non-performance.
Done to ensure that this is done.
One of the factors being identified by our key persons is the issue of transportation. For you to have a sustainable city, you must have a deliberate attempt to have a master plan.
This is early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's still early exchange and the conversation is getting bigger and better. We had Charles and Kelvin here to talk about, the chances of the Nigerian team when it comes to AFCON. And now, because the conversation is getting bigger, we're going to be joined by another guest. This time around, we'll be looking at, coaching and scouting when it comes to sport. And we're being joined by Vincent Unogu. He's the head coach NSCDC volleyball team. Vincent, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. So let's start. Let's look at sport coaching and scouting. I would like you, for those who don't have a proper understanding of these two concepts, I would like you to educate us on what it means when you talk about coaching and then the relationship with scouting.
Coaching is actually a modified name for teaching. A coach is a teacher. Scouting is business, is discovery for the purpose of exposure and contract and opportunity. But coaching is a calling that inspired people that are particularly interested in certain games to teach and to build a life in youth. So coaching is teaching and scouting is business. Because a coach may coach out of passion without regards to what will come out of it to him, without contract, without immediate benefit. In fact, sometimes even without long-term benefit. It is a passion, a calling to serve. But scouting, when we talk about scouting, it has to do with discovery, the ability of someone or the drive in someone to discover people or sportsmen that can attain greater heights in the game, that can sign contracts, that can make a difference in the game and make money out of it. So a scout may not be a coach, and a coach may not be a scout. Very rare you find a scout that is a coach, or a coach that is a scout. Thank you.
Okay, but these two people work together. A scout identifies talent and then takes the talent to a team or hands the talent to a coach so that they are groomed and then they get into mainstream participation. But we've seen in Nigeria that scouting is mainly for soccer. The scouts are scouting or looking out for talent in soccer, but we have talent in other kinds of sports. Why do we still have major focus on soccer alone?
Yes, it's true. Soccer has dominated the sporting world, especially in the developing countries, for a very long time. The window of opportunities for young children or for athletes from developing countries is very, very limited compared to soccer, because we have clubs that are universally popular, very rich. It's easy for somebody to make it in football than in other sports, because the window of opportunity, as I said earlier, is bigger in soccer. So if you have a scout in sport, he knows that if it is football and he discovers or she discovers somebody that is very good in the game, it's easier to move the person to Europe or to the Arab world, unlike basketball. And another limitation in a game like basketball in America, it is tied to education. So some of the sports in some countries, you cannot play it as a professional in a very tender age. You must have or pass through a school system. Then the question here is, how many of our sportsmen in this part of the world can achieve an education status that will qualify them for scholarship and other things, other opportunities of that level? Scouting in football gives direct opportunities to the scout and then to the players. Taking volleyball, for example, we have in America, scholarship for volleyball is mainly for the female, where we have 100% scholarship. But for the male, maybe 10%, 20%. So to have a young player from here to America, to move a young player from here to America, then you are ready to pay a huge sum of money in percentage as school fees. But for the female, you can have 100% scholarship. But if it is football, it's 100% scholarship, both for the male and the female. Then talking about Europe, because when we talk about scouting, you and I know that is moving players most times from lesser league to higher league, or from less developed countries to very developed countries, societies, where they can earn huge amount of money or make a difference in the sport. Moving players to Europe is easier in football too, more than other sports. I can count in Europe, I can count how many hockey, I can count maybe how many handballers, handball players, but football I cannot count. It's unlimited.
Now let's look at the business side of this. How do you, let me put it in a very simple way, how do you make money from coaching and scouting?
Truth be told, as I said, maybe apart from football, but 90% of coaches in other sports are doing it mainly on charity and passion. Coach me anywhere. Very few. We don't even have a money-paying league here in Nigeria, apart from football, a standard league where athletes have to travel from one state to another to go and play and make money. But in football, they do. In other sports, they don't. So it is a terrible thing that many people are coaching, but they are not earning. And at the long run, those that will earn are not those that coach the players, because we don't even have contracts. The players, most of them are poor. In Lagos, I know we have a lot of players in places like Ajegule and other suburbs and slums. Sorry to use that word. In many cities, we find players, but most of them are very, very poor. They cannot afford to even pay coaches. Even if I use myself as an example, I don't earn from coaching. Yes, I don't. I coach out of passion. But fine, some of the children have opportunities in the long run. But because there is no contract, you cannot force them to pay you, or the agent may not even pay you. So making money in sports in this part of the world is also limited by the absence of investment from corporate bodies in some particular sports. It's very unfortunate. As I said, some of the coaching in some of the sports are 100% charity work for youth development.
All right. In the sports like soccer, where you have lots of coaches, we find that Nigerian coaches do not really get contracting deals from teams outside of this country. Even for teams in Nigeria, look at the national team. Who was the coach? Who is the head coach? Is not a Nigerian. It's only on very few cases that we've had Nigerian indigenous coaches to head the national team. Why do we have a situation like that? I know there are categories. You have those in League A, you have those in League B. Why don't we have a lot of indigenous coaches in the top league as coaches?
I don't blame any federation that look outside the shores of the country to seek for a national coach or for a technical advisor in their clubs. I don't. The reason is, sport is not technology, and we are behind. In many aspects of our sport, we are behind. Our coaches don't have the financial capacity to build themselves to some certain level of global practices. So if the head coach does not have the required capacity to meet up with international standard, then you just have to go and bring somebody from the international environment to help build your own sport. It has always been a very serious argument between people that believe in indigenous coaches and those that said, no, to get the best, we must bring the best from outside. Fine. It is not a win-win situation. But most times, the coaches they brought outside also teach the coaches inside. That is, if they are humble enough to learn. We have this experience in Nigeria Volleyball Federation, where an expatriate was brought in from Serbia. Believe me, we learned a lot from him, a lot, because he came with a tactical part of the game that we've never seen before. Yes, he's a pure hero breed coach. So he introduced a lot of techniques to us, and it's strictly technology-wise. There are a lot of statistics, gadgets that we've not even seen, even in football. How many of our coaches have gone to Europe to do courses? Football is growing, so the coaches also need to grow.
Okay. Now, let's look at experience. So when you look at capacity, do you think the local coaches could compete favorably with their foreign counterparts, in terms of capacity? Because you look at, the preference for foreign coaches. But in your own estimation, do you think the local coaches could compete favorably with their foreign counterparts?
Just as earlier said by the second anchor, there is different levels of coaching. There's different level of coaching in all sports. Maybe level 1, 2, or 3, or category 1, 2, or 3, or class 1, 2, or 3. The truth is, a coach must have that capacity building in himself, or knowledge, or ability. A coach must prove himself to earn the position he finds himself. But most times, we see coaches appointed based on sentiment. Coaches getting appointed based on where they come from or who they know. So until our sport administrators start looking at ability, capability, knowledge as a basis to appoint coaches, then we can have the best of coaches. Issue of competing favorable with foreign coaches, as I said, is practically impossible. The reason is technology has overtaken sport, and we are backward in technology. Except otherwise, our local coaches get the adequate training, and such adequate training cannot be gotten within. It must be outside the shores of the country, because we don't have the facilities, we don't have the equipment, and we don't even have the environment that will warrant adequate learning and adequate teaching of sports.
All right, let's turn to scouting now. For scouts, it's about you identifying the talent and knowing what teams or where to take them to. And I know that there are some teams that engage the services of some scouts to help them look out for players, whether they're already established players or they're upcoming talents. How does a scout make himself relevant and well sought after?
Some scouts have the natural eyes to identify. Some scouts use statistics. Some scouts do third-party arrangements. You know, in Nigeria here, we have so many limitations, so many talents that are undiscovered. And these are not far from cultural practices, religious belief, and other things. A scout must be somebody that must be ready to go to the trenches, must dirty his hands and his feet, must go to the worst of place to convince whoever is a custodian of a talent, of a given talent, on why he or she needs a child or the talent to move further. Many scouts are limited by the belief of the general belief. Some people would say, no, and don't allow him to sign, don't give him to this. If they take her there, they will spoil her. A lot of cultural beliefs, a lot of societal mentality is affecting scouting in this part of the world a lot. A girl looking tall that can be a very powerful prospect for a certain sport, but because the parent or somebody in the family believe that if she plays sport, she will not get married, you know, an opportunity can come and they will say no. I remember some times ago, I went to as far as Jalingo because we were told there are tall young people there. We went there to scout. Of course, we saw some ladies, girls, 6.4, 6.3 feet tall. You can imagine 6.4, 6.5 tall at the age of 17. But the grandfather and her uncle insisted that she should not follow us to play volleyball. It's unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. So scouting has a lot of limitation in this part of the world. But some scouts really prove themselves, especially in football. They can travel as far as Maiduguri. They can travel as far as Sokoto or to Port Harcourt. As long as there's a sporting activity, they go there to get the best. Not waiting for videos, not waiting for highlights videos that are only packaged for some purposes. And it affects a lot of clubs. The issue of recording videos, packaging it, editing it, and sending it. That's what is happening now. And we have a lot of lazy scouts around.
I would like you to talk to us about some of the basic skills, you know, managerial skills or leadership skills or the basic skills required for one to be a good coach and scout?
Truth, honesty. I don't want to go into skill first. Let's go into character or attitude of the person in question. A scout or a coach must be honest to his players and to their parents. We have a lot of issues whereby, at the long run, a player that is discovered later learned that he was cheated in the beginning of his journey with a certain scout or a certain coach. So that attitude of honesty is priceless for a coach. Once you are honest with your players and they love you, they believe in you, there's nothing the coach and the players cannot do together. And there's nowhere they cannot reach. But in terms of certain skill, as I said, the power of motivation and inspiration that you can give hope to a player with prospect. Let them believe in themselves. Let them believe in the sport. Because at the beginning, nothing may be coming. At the beginning, no hope. But a scout or a coach that build confidence in players, they will grow up to become powerful figure in that very sport.
Okay, for the scouts, when we were
Another
talking earlier,
important
you talked about limitations for scouts or in scouting in Nigeria. How can some of these limitations be changed? For instance, a scout who goes to the interiors to get talent, and then for some fears, the talents are not allowed by their guardians or parents to leave. Is there a chance for collaboration? Is there a chance for scouts not to work as individuals, but to work as corporate entities to build that trust? What will help scouting in Nigeria generally?
Generally, we're supposed to have maybe a scouting commission or a scouting association, a body that regulates scouting in the country. If that is done, then it is institutionalized instead of personalized. If scouting is institutionalized, whereby they have a body that regulates them and an identity that define them as scouts, then I think the scout can collaborate with traditional rulers and community leaders. Before you approach a child or you go to a family, you can first pass through those entities to discuss so that the third party can convince the parents of the children or the families of the talent. As I said earlier, we have a lot of talent scattered around, but the limitation from families, friends, and relatives is stopping them from exploiting their potential in the wider world. So going through traditional rulers and the community leaders is one of the best ways to collaborate and create an awareness that the child can be secure. And signing contract is very important. You know, we have very serious problem in dealing with lawyers in this part of the world. Everybody's supposed to have a lawyer. And if everything is well spelled out, I don't think we'll have problem.
All right, how do we improve this trend where you scout for local players? Like you said, talents are here. But you see this trend whereby before you know it, you find them in overseas. They are going abroad to look for greener pastures or better opportunities. How do we stop this trend whereby we maximize the talents that are being scouted locally and they are of use to the community wherever they are and to the continent or the country where they are being discovered?
I will not blame them. I will not blame them. The sport here is quite terrible. The Ministry of Youth and Sport have a lot of work to do. They have to bring in corporate organization and make sport a business. Just imagine someone is being put on monthly salary of $3,000, playing maybe basketball, hockey, or handball in Kuwait. $3,000 is 3 million naira here. And maybe he's living under the roof of his father, who earns 70,000 in a month or 120,000 in a month. Don't look at the difference. The offer is tempting. And now, at the end of the month, just for playing handball, you'll be giving $3,000, which if you send here, will become 3 million naira. So the offer, the opportunity is what they look, because playing sports in this part of the world is a very, very desperate situation. Desperate. Because you suffer for equipment, training facilities, coaching, and other aspects. I don't blame them. Until we build our own, they will always go for greener pastures elsewhere.
Now, in building our own coaches, for instance, we have the Nigerian Institute that takes care of sports education. Now, how can you talked about the use of technology, for instance, but are there qualities that Nigerian coaches have that can be built on to ensure that we can also export not just talent from here, but coaches from here? How do we restructure the Nigerian sports academies that we have? How do we restructure sports education in Nigeria to ensure that coaches are up to date with some of this technology, some of these new techniques, and they become sought after? It may not be in the West, but within Africa. How do we tap into the markets?
Tapping into the market is until we create a value for what we can do. As I said earlier, sport is not technology. We have a very serious problem, and that problem is the business of sport. It's very poor in this part of the world. Even if we want to incorporate, even if we want to build sport to a certain level to compete with international standard, we must bring in business in sport, because it involves a lot of investment, and that investment is not what we are seeing. Our sport here is mostly government subsidized, and that is not enough. We need funding, if possible, perfect funding. And this funding should not come from the government, but from corporate organizations and private companies that will market their products and advertise their goods and services through sponsorship of sport.
Let me ask you, in terms of marketing and drawing attention to certain kinds of sports in Nigeria, for instance, volleyball that you coach in, what would sell volleyball? What would sell other kinds of sports? Is the job of the coach or the job of the scout limited to just finding the players and then ensuring that they're informed, they understand the game? Or are there other aspects of coaching and scouting that will help the game itself gain recognition, gain sponsorship?
Of course, we need creativity in the game. The ability of coaches or administrators to create programs that will be appealing, that will be attractive. Just playing the sport is not enough, but there must be competitions. Sometimes in Kaduna, some weeks back, somebody hosted inter-institutional games. Yes, all the higher institutions in a particular state came together to compete. That is creativity. That is the kind of innovations we are talking about. Some coaches have that, and if you can do that, you can play different types of competition that can attract sponsors. But that ability to be innovative is not easy. And once you have it, I think we can do better things. Basketball have 3-on-3. They can play different varieties of basketball. Even football, you can play different varieties of football. In volleyball, we have the volleyball, we have beach volleyball, and now they have park volleyball, and then we have king and queen of the court volleyball too. So these are varieties that attract people to the sport. And it takes the innovation of some coaches or administrators to create such avenue for people to take interest in. So innovations in sport is what matters in this situation. Innovations.
Now let's look at the issue of sponsorship. You will agree with me, this is one of the contending areas. What do you think can be done to ensure that you attract sponsors and investors into this business? Because it's quite important to have them. From your wealth of experience and your issues you've been dealing with, what will you recommend as a way in order to be able to solve this problem when it comes to sponsorship?
We have a very, very serious problem of absence of public-private partnership. Public-private partnership. I think it should first start from the law. There must be an enabling law that will mandate private companies to invest either 1% of their profits into sports. It's very, very important. Very, very important. A legislative process, a legislative law enacted that will mandate private companies making profits to invest. But that may not be enough because that is like a CSR, corporate social responsibility. We're not talking about that one. We are talking about investing strictly for business, where they can have value for their money. But if we can start with that, I think we'll go to places. We'll go places. It's very unfortunate if I tell you something. Like Monster drink in Nigeria, they are making a lot of profit. But a country that have maybe 2 million people, 3 million people population, you will see them sponsoring sport there. Yes, sponsoring sport activities there. Why a country with 300 million people, they did not even put a dime into sport? I ask myself why. Why should companies be making profit out of the people and they cannot invest in the youths? I think our legislators have a big work to do. We just need a champion, a hero, a Mandela in sport that will do that for us. That will mandate companies making profit in the country to invest in sport.
In investing in sport, there are several things that companies consider. There are some companies that have taken to basketball, and so they sponsor basketball competitions. Some sponsor lawn tennis, and some sponsor football. But for other sports, why aren't they getting enough sponsorship? Is it that the Nigerian population, for instance, is less interested or finds some of the sports less interesting? And if they find them less interesting, how can they be appealing or made appealing to attract a larger audience so that the sponsorship can be justified?
You know, before now, as I said, football has overtaken sport. It's just recently that basketball stepped up, you know, qualifying to the Olympics. And one of the reasons football and basketball were able to achieve that is because a bulk of the players trade their skill outside the country, acquiring skills that they cannot get here easily. Some of the sports is just recently that we start having young players leaving the shores of Nigeria because through social media, you can be able to see them play. You can watch their videos. We have leagues now in handball. We have leagues in volleyball, Division 2, Division 1, and Premier League. So we have videos. Just of recent, we have about 7 or 8. It's unfortunate, but it's an achievement. 7 or 8 young boys now are trading their plight in volleyball outside the shores of Nigeria. Some in Europe and some in Asia. It's a good thing, and we are proud of that. I think the dominance of football, no one can compete with it, but it has affected other sports so much in the country, and it may take a very radical approach, very, very radical approach, especially from the ministry, if they can give 10%, just 10% of what they fund football to other sports, believe me, you will see a lot of difference. Just 10% of what they give football, they should just put it in other sports. You will see a lot of difference. And sponsorship will come.
Okay, great. Vincent, we need to let you go now so that you can attend to your players and then you can scout for more players for Nigerians. Thank you very much for joining us on Early Exchange.
Thank you too. It's a pleasure.
All right. Also, a wrap.
Yes, talking about sports, and it happens to be on a Friday, so that means that you can engage in one sports game or the other as you plan for the weekend. If you can't engage, you can engage with the eyes. I mean, if you can't engage physically, you can watch. For some of us, we know how to support the sportsmen and women morally. We know how to pray for them, and we know how to cheer them. Let's do that, but ensure that we get the best out of this weekend, enjoying the rest that will help us become more fired up for greater productivity in the coming week. I am Blessing AHA. Thank you for being with us on Early Exchange all through this week. Let's do it again Monday, 7 a.m. West African time. Do not forget that Business Insight comes up at 10 a.m. here on SIG News. And Fanny.
Well, it's a wrap. It's been a great week and a great time with you. We hope that you join us when we need to come on the show. Until we return afresh, I am Femi Ayodele. Have a nice weekend.